Hello.
Hello.
I see that people are coming in now.
Yes.
I will start by doing a little bit of intro and then I will give you the touch.
Thank you.
Let's give us a little bit of time for people to arrive,
Yes.
maybe 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah. It's fine.
How is the weather in Denmark?
It's been quite mild, between 5 and 10 degrees, so pleasant, I would say, for this time of year. Sometimes it can be snow and freezing even in the beginning of November, but really nice.
Yeah, it's a little bit of snow here now.
Yes,
Cold.
but I think you have like snow for more than half a year, don't you?
Um,
I was there in
depend.
March and slided on the landing strip because of snow. So
Yeah, it's depends on it's yeah, it's sometimes in March.
yeah,
Sometimes we have like no snow in the winter. It's
yeah,
really weird. So,
okay. So
maybe
it's
we
a
should.
lot depending on the Gulf Stream and things like that.
Uh, I don't know. I have no idea how this works. Let's just start, and people will arrive. They're always late, so
Yes, that's fine. You're recording anyway, so
yeah.
yes.
So, uh, okay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this Azure session. We have Erik Eilskov Jensen, if I'm pronouncing
That's
that
pretty
right.
good. Yes.
Yeah, he's a Microsoft MVP and data platform
No,
and
on developer technologies actually.
developer technologies. Yeah, that's a subcategory, right?
No,
No,
just
okay.
.NET.
He's a principal specialist in Virum, Denmark, and he's a .NET developer also. So he knows a lot about developing and doing SQL stuff.
Mhm.
So we are very happy for Erik to come and join us and have a presentation here for Icelandic User Group. And
Yes.
hopefully we will get some insights into this. So I'll give you the torch, Erik, and
Yes.
you
Thanks a
just,
lot. Well, this presentation is about using managed identity in Azure, and specifically with using it with a SQL Server from an app service. But it's basically more an example of basically how you should use it, and also try to explain a little bit about the internals of how managed identity works. Might be able to help you troubleshoot it. And we will also do a deep dive on how to get managed identity work with SQL Server. Hopefully you will get some tips and tricks home with you that are poorly or undocumented, and that can help you be successful when you are deploying solutions that are using app service, SQL Server, as a SQL database, and managed identity. So with that, maybe I should start. I'm sharing my screen, so I can't really see if you raise your hands, but feel free. This will be kind with the number of people we hear, we can make it really informal. So just feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions on the way that you want to. It's absolutely fine. So let's just start with a little bit an overview of what managed identity is. I will share my screen.
Are you sharing? Yeah.
No, I'm not sharing anything yet, but hopefully I will soon. You should be able to see my screen now, or very soon anyway.
Yeah.
Yes. So this, as I said before, this is about managed identity and Azure App Service with an Azure SQL database. But it's also a lot of deep dive on what is managed identity and how can we troubleshoot it, in particular on an app service. But I think a lot of the things that apply here apply to basically all services that support managed identity. You can reach out to me on Twitter, now Blue Sky actually as well, and GitHub, and my social handle is Eric EJ. So we will get an overview of the managed identity, what it is, and how we can use it. I will do a sample deployment while I'm speaking, and we'll deep dive on that a little bit, and then hopefully there will be time for a look under the hood. I have a sharp deadline at 1 o'clock, so let's see how far we get. What is managed identity? It was formerly called MSI, Managed Service Identity, I think. It's a feature of Entra ID, which automatically creates a service principal that is tied to an Azure service, or they can also associate it with. There's two types of managed identity objects that you can work with. We'll get into that later. Then applications that are hosted can generate tokens that use this identity as their token identity. And you don't need to provide any credentials in your connection strings, which is really what all this is about, avoiding having to provide credentials, avoiding having to store credentials. So why is it secure? Because those applications that are hosted on that service will be able to generate the tokens. So it's not like anybody can address that server and generate a token. It's only that application. So that's like a trust relationship between your application and their managed identity. And since these objects live in Entra ID, you can manage their lifecycle and in permissions, and you can also revoke and disable the identities if you have a sense that there is a security breach. So how does managed identity work? In the lower left corner here, we have an app service, and it has a service, an app service with an application running, which is what is identified as service A here. And then from your application code, you request a token, either via a library, or there's also some libraries to request tokens directly. But for example, SQL client library for .NET does that for you. It will access the managed identity service that is also running on the same host as the app service, which then on behalf of the application will request a token from Okay, it says Active Directory here, but now it's called Entra ID. And then it will receive the token, provide that back to the application in step 4. And then the service will append the token to each request to the other service. And those services could be a storage service. It can be a kind of an API, for example, providing responses, but it can also be a database service, for example, Azure SQL database. And that service will then have the opportunity to verify the token, may potentially caching the verification, and then provide a response with you. So there will be no storage of secrets anywhere, and your infrastructure will no longer require a key vault to be present and having to secure that key vault. So there's actually 2 types of managed identity, which is system assigned, which is a managed identity object that's directly associated with your resource, for example, your app service. And then there's user assigned, which is a standalone resource that can be associated with multiple compute services. Of course, there can be issues with accidental deletion of managed identities, and you can also use locks to prevent those accidental deletions. I think soft delete was actually also added recently. But before we go any further, I'm going to start my deployment. So we have a completely empty resource group here, and to make sure that that's true, I'm just going to refresh. So I have created a resource group in Sweden Central Data Center. And then I'm going to run one of my deployments against this. So I'm going to open the terminal in this folder. And then I'm going to run this deploy script, which will deploy my infrastructure. So I'm just going to show to you quickly what this does. So it's going to call a bicep script. I assume a lot of you are already familiar with bicep. And then it's going to allow me to connect to this resource with my IP address by getting my IP here and then providing that as a parameter to the script. And then I'm going to provide and I'm specifying the resource group which already exists. And then I'm going to use my main bicep template, which we'll have a deeper look into later, to actually to actually deploy the infrastructure. So I'm going to call. Actually, maybe I need to set login first. So first I'm going to log into Azure, and then I'm going to set my subscription to the correct subscription. What is the syntax for that? It's probably why is IntelliSense. See if this is the right subscription ID. Right, that's not the one. Jo, det er faktisk rigtigt. So now I have set my subscription scope and I can run my deploy script. And we can go to the portal and verify that oh, sorry, I have it open here already. And we can go to deployments and we should be able to see a deployment running, but it's not. There we are. So now it started deploying. Go back to the slides. So while this is brewing, so as we saw, I start with completely blank resource group. This is what the bicep script is deploying. A SQL server, a logical SQL server, which will host a SQL database. It will include a firewall rule that will allow my IP to connect to the server database. And it will include a connection string, which I will show you in the bicep file in a while. And then it will also include a web app with a hosting plan and a user assigned identity object. So what is the deployment part? The goal of this is to create a web app that runs with passwordless minimal access to an Azure SQL database. I will explain what I mean by minimal access in a while. And also one of my design goals for this demo is to use the minimal amount of code, basically written text. So for infrastructure, I'm using Bicep, which is kind of a condensed format for doing ARM deployments compared to the more verbose JSON that we used back in the day. And then I'm using a .NET 8 minimal web API published to a web app. And for configuration, I'm using PS Core, which will solve some issues with limited intro ID rights. What I have done before doing this demo, I have installed Microsoft Bicep module with winget install, and I have also installed the SQL Server module with the command line here. All the slides and the code I'm sharing is available on GitHub, so you can have a closer look after. And then I'm connecting my account with AC Login. So now we're in the middle of the demo already. So let's get rid of this. It's still deploying. So while it's still deploying, let's have a closer look at the Bicep script. I don't know if you know, but Visual Studio actually now includes a Bicep editor. It's not as fully featured as the one in VS Code, but it's certainly better for doing syntax checking and so on than previously, where there's no support for editing Bicep files in Visual Studio. I think it might be an extension that you have to add, but it's definitely possible. So we are specifying the user object for the SQL Server. So we are using Azure, Entra ID authentication against our SQL database. And this is my administrator login, and then I'm passing in my administrator object ID as a parameter. I'm also passing in my public IP so I can access the database after it's been created, because all newly created databases are not accessible from the internet unless you actually allow IP access. So your IP needs to be put on an allow list. And then I set the resource names here. For the resource names, I don't know if you are aware, but you may be that there is a size for a web page here for recommendations about how you should name your resources, like what should the abbreviation be for the various resource types. So all resource types in Azure has a little abbreviation here that you can use for naming your resources when you're deploying them to Azure. Let's go back to the code. Please feel free to jump in with any questions on the way. One of the resources that we're deploying is a logical SQL server with Active Directory authentication, as you can see specified here. Then we are deploying a database, and I'm actually running a sample called AdventureWorks LT. So I will have a database on the database server when I do my deployment. I'm adding a firewall rule to allow Azure IPs so that the web app service can actually access the SQL Server database. This could also be done with private networking, but then it would be a different talk. But this is like a shortcut for allowing this kind of access. And then I'm setting up a firewall rule on the server to allow access to my IP address. I'm creating a managed identity object. It's a separate object. And then I'm creating my web app hosting plan, basically like I'm allocating a VM to run my web app. And then I'm creating a website. And then I'm setting the identity to user assigned, and I'm referring back to the managed identity here. So I now have a user assigned identity associated with my web app. And then I will add a connection string eventually. Let's just break down the connection string a little bit. So it will connect to something.database.windows.net, which is this SQL Server Properties fully qualified domain name. And then I will use the database name. But the important thing is here is that I'm using a special authentication method. Maybe I should make this a little bit bigger. I'm using a special authentication method called Active Directory Managed Identity, which is supported by a SQL Server driver. And then as a user ID, I'm passing the client ID of my managed identity. And that's all I need to do. So you can see I have a connection string here with no password stored because I'm connecting passwordless using the identity of the web app that is assigned here. Any questions? Okay, let's go and have a look in the portal to see how the deployment is going. It's succeeded. So, sorry. So we can see now all the resources are present in our resource group now. So we have the database, the logical database server. We have our app service plan, basically the host for the app service, and we have our managed identity. If we drill in on the managed identity, can I make this bigger? Slightly. You can see it has a client ID and an object ID. So it's a separate Azure ARM object, but it exposes its client ID and object ID that are basically intra-ID properties of this object. And there's no managing of the password or anything of this resource. It's all taken care of by Microsoft Entra. Sorry, let's go in here again. So let's go and have a look at the app. It's a .NET 8 minimal API. So very few lines of code, 40 lines of code, more like 30 lines of code, where I run a SQL statement and expose the result of that statement as a JSON document. I'm using a SQL data source, and my connection string is currently, let's see, my connection string currently points to a local database on my machine called a SQL Express instance. So it's not pointing to to the Azure SQL database, but I have the same database installed locally. So let's just see the app in action. Then I press F5. Yes, it's building and fully launching the app. So we expose a get persons endpoint, and we can try it out here in our Swagger UI. And we should be able to get a reply from the database if it's responding. Yeah, so we should get a list of customers with some properties and a nested result with the address inside it. So this is what we get from our local database. So the API is working locally, we can conclude. So that's all good. But now what we have in Azure at the moment is, of course, just the resources with no data in, we actually have data in the database, but we don't have any application running in our app service. Let's just have a quick look at the app service as well, so we can see the effect of what we did in our ARM script. Might be easier to better understand what's going on. So if we go to settings on the app service, you can see that the system assigned identity for this app service has actually not been enabled, because that's what I said in the ARM script. And then there's a user assigned identity, which then can be used to represent this web app when it's calling other Azure resources. And we specify that it's using that by using the client ID of this managed identity as part of our connection string. So if we go to the configuration, and have a look at the environment variables. Sorry, yeah, they moved that around. So if we go to connection strings, we should be able to see our connection string and have a closer look at the value. Let's go into advanced edit to see it. So all the variable values we had previously has now been replaced with actual values, and this user ID value here corresponds to the client ID that we saw on the managed identity object, which I'm navigating to now. You can see this is the client ID that we saw previously here. So this connection string is now configured to connect to the database using this client ID. So next step in our little journey here is to get the application actually published. And in order to do that, we call our publish script here. So let's just have a look at that. What this does is it runs a .NET publish on the app and outputs it to the publish folder. And then we will zip up everything in the publish folder into a zip file. And we will get a reference to our web app in the next line. I will just make this a little bit bigger. So yeah. This is probably better now. Yes. And then we will get a reference to the web app as in our $app in PowerShell variable here. And then we will use the publish AC web app commandlet to actually publish the web app. So that's basically what publishing a web app is uploading a zip file using a special API against our app service, and that will put the code that we have compiled and published in the correct location in our web app. So let's run this publish methods, publish script. So what is happening now is we are building the application and zipping it. eventually. Don't know why it's taking so long. And the publish is now completed, and we create a zip file, and eventually we'll publish that zip file to our web server. That means bring the code up to the web server, and it went well. We get some status results back here from our PowerShell script. So now we should actually be able to run the app in the portal. And let's try to do that. And I'm now again looking at the web app, and I can launch it in my browser. And I can see that the app, I don't know, it's really small. I don't know why it's so small. It's like it's almost secret, but there is an HTTP error 404. That's something like not found. So the app is actually responding, but I'm requesting a page that the app is unable to serve. So if I go to the persons endpoint, that was where we're supposed to get our list of persons. We will get, we will get an HTTP error 500. So that's basically because the application has crashed on us. So how can we dig into what the problem actually is? I will go back to the portal. And we can use Kudu to view what went wrong. Kudu is also called Advanced Tools. So I will launch Kudu. And there we can actually see something that looks a little bit like the Windows event viewer. It's just an XML file with the same information. If we go to debug, is it process, is it environment? Yeah, we go to the debug console and go to logs. Is it log files? Yes, and we see there's an event log XML file here, and we can open this in Kudu and drill down to the bottom of it and see what the actual error is. So it's looks like we're getting a .NET error here when the application is trying to open the connection with the connection string, and the error we're getting is login failed for user token identified principal. Any suggestions why we're getting this error?
Maybe the user has locked, or there is no connection to the SQL server.
This is actually an error we get from the SQL server. So there is a connection to the SQL server, but we're just getting this login message from the server that we tried to log in, but it failed.
Don't you have to create like a user in the SQL Server from external
fantastic.
provider?
Exactly. Yes, we haven't created. So for the SQL Server resource, we have to allow the managed identity access to the database, and we have not done that yet. Exactly. So how do we do that? Well, if we go back and look at the resource group, I lost my way here. So if we look at the resource group, let's have a look at the SQL Server. A SQL Server can also have a managed identity, but that is used when this SQL Server is calling out to other places. So adding our user assigned managed identity here is not going to help us, because this is like we're coming with this managed identity, and then we need SQL Server to actually recognize that we're trying to log on with our managed identity. So how do we do that? Well, we actually need to create a user inside the database that represents the managed identity. So let's go back to our IAC code and have a look at the configuration script, which is the last building block. So so in order to create a user, we actually need to connect to the database, basically log into the database and run a script against the database that allows us to create the user. So in order to do that, I have this script here that gets a token for the person running, for the process running this script. It gets an access token, as you can see here, for the person running this script to connect to the database. And I also get some information about the managed identity that I need to use later. So I can use this applet called get AC user assigned identity, which will allows me to get properties of that object. And I can get the client ID and I write it out here. And then I convert the client ID to a SID. I will explain later why we need to do that. So in not so locked down environments, you can actually just issue this single SQL statement here, create user, and then the name of the managed identity user. The name is actually not important. Sorry, yes, the name is important here from external provider, and that will do a lookup. That will do a lookup in Active Directory and get the object ID from the managed identity that is specified in the MI name, and then store that in a system database. But in many environments, you are not allowed. It's not allowed for your pipeline to actually do those kind of directory reader functions, run directory reading, because of security concerns about the ability to do that. You could exfiltrate data, for example. So this is disallowed in many environments. But today I'm sharing with you a completely undocumented way of doing this that works really well if you're in a lockdown environment, where you can use this syntax instead. So you are actually doing like half of what from external provider does for you, and then using this alternative syntax. So you are converting the the client ID of the managed identity to a SID, which is a Windows concept called security ID. And then you're specifying a type of E. I assume E stands for external. And then you say the same things you had before here, create user, and that will actually create a user that represents the managed identity being external, an external type of user inside your database. And then in terms of, I mentioned minimal access. So the only access that we need here is a DB data reader. It could even be more specific and saying that we only have select statement to that single table we are exposing here, because this will actually allow this app service to access or to read all the tables in the database, not only the tables that are actually exposed by this code that we're running. And I needed to run this locally. When I was using PS Core, your mileage may vary, but in order to use this invoke SQL commandlet, which takes the name of the SQL server and the name of the database, the access token that I got up here, and the query, which is this string here, is the script that we want to run against our database. So without further ado, let's run this. Oh, sorry. So now I'm going to run the configuration script. Did I share that with you? Yes, I did already. So we're seeing that I'm getting a token, and now it's actually creating the database user in the database. So let's go to the portal again and see if we can run the app now. So go to app service here. And again, I'm getting 404, so that's okay. And we're actually able to connect to our database now using no passwords with limited rights, connecting to our database and getting results back to our client and whoever is running this API. So let's we still have a little bit of time. So let's dive into how is this actually working. So on this app service host called the app service plan, there's actually a service running, which is an endpoint that exposes a service, a little web service, so to speak, that then speaks with Entra ID. So it's like a trusted service that Entra ID trusts, and it can get access token on our behalf. So again, if we look at Kudu, we can see some in our, and we can have a closer look at our environment in Kudu. And there's some interesting values down here. I will just see if I can zoom in a bit more. Yes, I can. So what my app is doing, you don't see it do it because it's using some of Microsoft's standard libraries that then is wrapped in the connection string, but it's using a library to eventually call this endpoint, which then is exposed as an environment variable called MSI endpoint. And as you can see, this is a local web service running on whatever port and then the MSI token. And then it's passing this MSI secret as part of the request to get a token. So these values are actually exposed here as part of the process running the web application, and then they're picked up by whatever library he needs to get an access token from from the MSI. And you can actually see, for some peculiar reason, the same values are repeated here with another name. I guess they changed something at one point in time. So this is under the covers how my app, so our web app, can get its token by using these two values to get the token via the identity endpoint on this host. So now we have everything running. I have a GitHub repository with this all this in it. So do use user-assigned managed identity. I definitely recommend user-assigned managed identity, and why not system-assigned? Because if you are tearing down and bootstrapping your app service, every time you do that, and if you use system-assigned managed identity, you will get a new identity every time you then rebuild your web app. So, and you, where as a user-assigned managed identity, as I said, that's a separate ARM object, so it will survive other resources being removed under it. So no need to store passwords or use key vaults anymore, which I really like. And basically I can sleep well at night because I don't need to worry about my passwords being exposed by somebody peeking into my key vault. I have this available on GitHub, under my Erik Ide account called in a repository called Cloudburst Demo. All the code I have shown you here. And let's just have a quick look at this web page. There's a web page here with services with managed identity support. And this is a long list of all the services in Azure. Basically, people now have come to expect that a new service is not really properly implemented until it supports managed identity. And as you can see, there's quite a few services by now that support managed identity, which is really, really good. I think there's also work being done on moving this concept to other services and even other clouds. Not sure how far Microsoft are with that yet, but I think that's a work in progress. So you can actually also do password authentication against other services and or services in other clouds. Well, that's basically my my 2 cents about managed identity. Yeah. I hope you found it useful. Yeah. And maybe you even learned something today that you didn't know already.
So guys, you have any questions for Erik?
I was just wondering, in what use cases would you rather use system assigned rather than user identities? What's the difference between system and user?
Yeah, the system assigned identity. The advantage about the system assigned identity is it lives together with the resource. So if you don't want to be concerned about removing it after the fact, then it will be when you remove the resource, it's like a child resource of the resource.
You're med, man. I had one.
So if you don't want to remove to think about removing your user assigned managed identity, that's an advantage of it. But I other than that, I think it's mainly just causing a lot of headaches understanding why you cannot log on because you have suddenly rebuilt your web app or similar.
Did that answer your question, Peter?
Yes, it did. Yeah, thanks.
Herman, you unmuted yourself. Did you want to ask something?
I actually had almost the same question as Peter.
Yeah. No, I definitely recommend user-assigned managed identity. That user-assigned managed identity can also be used for multiple purposes. Where as I mean, it can connect multiple services with multiple. So for a whole app complex, you can use the same managed identity, and then you can, as an Entra ID administrator, you can simply disable that account, and that will shut down the whole thing in a single go, rather than having to hunt for all those system assigned identities. Another advantage of a user assigned managed identity.
Other than that, it was a very informative lecture. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yes, we are actually managing quite a lot of Azure SQL databases, and we are trying to eliminate using SQL logins and stuff. So
exactly. So this is the path you need to go in order to do this. And you can also use managed identity with applications running on an Azure VM, because an Azure VM also comes with the same managed identity service. It doesn't have to be necessarily have to be a managed service. And Azure VM also has this. You can also assign an identity to an Azure VM and use it in the same way as with a library or whatever to get a token to connect to other resources. So it's very there's a lot of sugar coating using it with SQL client, because it's basically just this one connection string setting. But if you go a little more low level in with the Azure SDK, you can do all this yourself from any app and use the access token when you're doing requests against the resources that support managed identity.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great.
So, any other questions?
Feel free to reach out if you happen to download the repo and nothing is working. Feel free to reach out on GitHub or on one of the social media.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you for
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Very good, informative, and very useful. And we'll take a look at the Git repo from you.
Thanks a lot.
So,
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you a lot. Thank you for coming to Azure User Group in Iceland. And
you're welcome. It was a pleasure.
And have a nice weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.